Good morning. To all who are here in the sanctuary or connecting with us through technology, or even watching this after the fact, I welcome you to People's Church. My name is Bob Butekoffer. My pronouns are he and him, and I serve as a representative on the Board of Trustees. Our worship today is led by Reverend Diana Smith, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society in Coralville, where she began serving in 2020. She's passionate about several things: shared ministry, the arts, nurturing our place amidst the wonder of the universe, justice, the power of relationship, and our UU congregations. Prior to ministry, Reverend Smith worked on environmental program and policy development in Washington State and British Columbia for over a decade. In addition, today we have worship associate Josh Wagner, Judy Michelin on the piano, Matt Wild on internet outreach, and our special musician, Deborah Dakin. All people of goodwill are welcome here at People's Church. As an official welcoming congregation, we celebrate and honor your sexual orientation, your gender expression and gender identity, as well as your race, your ethnicity, and your cultural background. We also celebrate and honor your journeys with faith and doubt, your comfort and or discomfort with money, your bodies of all sizes and shapes, your abilities and disabilities, whether seen or unseen, your generational perspectives and age, and so much more. In other words, to put it simply, whoever you are accepted here just exactly as you are. A special welcome goes out to any newcomers joining service today. If you would like to be added to our mailing list, please contact the church office, or if you're here in person, please fill out one of these alarmingly green cards that you'll find in the pew rack in front of you, and you can place it in the offering plate as they're passed later in the service. Online participants are welcome to chat with everyone gathered on Zoom after the service, and in-person participants are invited for coffee and conversation in the lower level following the service. Now, if you have an order of service, you can take a look at the back and consider if there's something you'd like to get involved with here in our congregation. A special note, we do have an employment opportunity for a part-time faith formation director. Please pass the word, and if you know of anyone who might be qualified, please encourage them to apply. Finally, we extend a big thank you to the many volunteers who made today's gathering possible. Thank you to Faith Formation volunteers Lou Wilcox, Aaron Ogle, and Megan Jones, Bill Hart on the sound system, the greeters Judy Price and Joy Winey, and to the kitchen crew headed up by Jill Jones. So now, with a sense of gratefulness for our time together, I invite you into a moment of awareness, which will begin and end with the ringing of our singing bowl.
Good morning. It is so good to be here with you today. Thank you for welcoming me so warmly. And while she's not physically here today, many thanks to Reverend Karin. It is so important to have a trusted ministerial colleague so close by for mutual support or for a pulpit swap like we're doing today. And so as we begin, in the words of Reverend Michelle Collins, as we light this chalice with its freely shining light and freely shared warmth, let us be reminded of the many things that are freely shared with us, and that we freely share with others. May we lean into generosity shared from the heart that can warm those around us. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame within a chalice as a symbol of sanctuary, safety, and hope, to unite us in our worship and to remind us of our ongoing search for the light of truth. When we light it, we also remember that Unitarians created the symbol of the flaming chalice during World War II to help them in their efforts to help people in Europe escape the Nazis. As Peyton comes forward to light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you who are online to light a candle nearby or hold a warm intention in your heart. As you're willing and able, please join in reading aloud the rest of our chalice lighting words as together we say, as we light this chalice, we warm ourselves in the love, mutual respect, and care of beloved community. We gather as people of diverse backgrounds and identities in an interdependent relationship. Together, we seek to realize justice within this congregation and in the broader world.
All those who wish to are invited to join me in saying the words of affirmation of this church. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. I invite you to lift your voices in song for our gathering hymn, number 149 in your gray hymnal, Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is February's hymn of the month. We'll be singing one verse every week, so this week we're singing the first verse only. Please rise in body and or spirit. Lift every voice and sing, till the end ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope and the present has brought us. They sing the rising sun of all our glory is gone. Let us march on till victory is won.
Okay, and now we have our time for our all ages, our story. If you'd like to join me, come on up. Okay, hi. Good morning. Great to see everyone. So, today, with our story, there are many ways that we can spread joy. Sharing or living our value of generosity is one of those. Today's story comes from India, and it is going to involve a little bit of drumming. You all know how to drum, right? Yeah, good, all right. Okay, because there are going to be some times where I'm going to say, the boy walked along drumming. And you know what we all get to do? Drum. Yes, yes, you got it. You know this one. Yeah. So he's going to walk along drumming, tira kita ta da. And we all, did my mic go away? I think my mic went away. Oh, okay, it's back. It's still here? Okay. All right, we're good. Okay. Okay. So like I was saying, this story comes from India, and it starts with a boy. Now this boy wished for a drum. There was really nothing he wanted more than a drum. But unfortunately for him, his family was very, very poor, and his mom could not afford to buy him a drum. But one day, after working at the market, while she was walking home, she saw something. She saw a stick that was perfect for drumming. And so she picked it up, and she took it home, and she gave it to her son. Now he was delighted, and he created a rhythm. Can we make a rhythm? Tira kita ta da, tira kita ta da. Yeah. And so he took that stick, and he started walking, and he walked around the neighborhood drumming. Tira kita ta da, tira kita ta da. As he was walking, he saw a neighbor, and this neighbor was very upset. He asked her why she was so upset, and she said that her fire would not start because her wood was wet, and so she could not make dinner. Now that's a problem, right? No. Well, we all like to eat. Most of us like to eat. So I know I like to eat. So if I couldn't start my fire and make dinner, I would have a problem. Nice to know you wouldn't, though. Everybody will have to keep that in mind. But so this boy thought, and he realized, he looked at his stick, and he realized it was very, very dry. And while he was loving making drumming, he thought, there's something better to do with this. And he took his stick and he gave it to his neighbor, and she put it in the fire, and her fire flared up, and she was able to cook dinner. And she was so happy. She was so happy that she cooked a piece of naan, which is a kind of Indian bread, and she... Great, I love naan too. So she cooked some naan and she gave him a piece. Well, he wasn't hungry right then, but he was grateful, and he took his piece of naan and he walked along, waving it in the air in time with his drumming sound. So he walked along, tira kita ta da, tira kita ta da. As he walked along a little bit further down the way, he saw a baby and its mother, and the baby was crying. Well, why is this baby crying? He asked the mom. She was so upset too, and she said, the baby's crying because we haven't been able to eat all day. We haven't been able to eat all day because we can't sell any of our pots. Well, what do you think that boy did?
He gave the naan to the baby.
He did, yes, he thought a little bit, and he gave the naan to the mom and the baby stopped crying, and they were so happy. And the mom said, thank you so much. Why don't you take this pot? And she gave him a giant pot. It was like this big. So she gave him this giant pot. He said, well, I don't really need a pot, but okay, thank you. So he took that pot, and he put it on his head, and he walked along drumming, tira kita ta da, tira kita ta da. So he walks along with his giant pot on his head, and he got to the river. And at the river, he saw some people who were washing clothes, but they were fighting. Why are you fighting? He asked. Well, we broke our giant pot. We broke our giant pot, so we can't finish our washing. And so we don't know what to do. Well, what do you think he did?
He gave them the giant pot.
Yes, he took that pot and he said, well, I don't need this. Here, take this pot. He gave them that giant pot. They were so happy. And they said, here, please take this coat. There was a beautifully embroidered coat that they had just sitting there extra. They gave him this coat. He didn't really need a coat. Why not? And he slung it over his shoulder, and he walked along drumming. Tira kita da da, tira kita da da. So he walked along drumming, and as he walked further, he saw a man who had almost no clothes on and was shivering. He said, oh my goodness, why are you standing here shivering? And the man said, I was robbed. and I lost almost all my clothing, and I am so cold. Well, you know where this is going, right?
He's gonna give the guy the coat.
Yes, he had a coat, and so he took that coat and he said, please, take this coat. I don't need this. And the man said, thank you so much. This means so much to me. And I actually have this horse right here that I can no longer take care of.
He's gonna
And
give him a
so,
horse.
so please take this horse. And the boy said, okay, I'll take the horse. He started off with a stick, and now he's got a horse. And so he walked along with that horse, and this time he heard the drumming and the beat of the horse's hooves. Tira-kita-ta-da, tira-kita-ta-da. So they walked along, the boy and the horse, together drumming, and they saw a giant wedding party. Well, this giant wedding party was so upset, too. Everybody's upset today, goodness gracious. They saw this giant wedding party, it was upset. And the boy said, why are you upset? And the wedding party said, well, it's time for the wedding to start, but the horse hasn't arrived, and the groom needs a horse in order for the wedding. And the boy said, well, guess what? I've got a horse. Here, take this horse. And they were so happy, right? And they said, oh, what can we do to repay you? And he had noticed that there were a bunch of musicians, some of whom had extra drums. And he said, could I have a drum? And they said, of course, please take a drum. And so he got the drum, and he walked home. What do you think he did with that drum? Tira-kita-ta-da, tira-kita-ta-da. Yes, and this is a story of how we never know what can come of a gift that we give, especially what joy it can bring to someone else. Thank you for listening to my story. And now you all can head back to your seats, drumming or not.
I now invite all to rise in body and or spirit to sing together hymn 1060 as we sing of hope and joy found in your teal softcover hymnals. As we sing of hope and joy today, some anguish and despair, how can we lift our voices in this way, while some have pain and misery to spare? If a crumbling world we would renew, we must sing no ordinary song. Heals from worldly gone will never do. In breath compassion must belong. Let this song our greatest hopes contain, laughter of a well-fed child its tune, whose sober every heartbeat its refrain, its harmony from peaceful cities hewn. Sing of joy while hammering each nail. Sing of hope while pulling every weed. So shall we sing together and prevail. May every alleluia bear a seed. You may be seated. Reverend Sean Parker Dennison is the minister of the Rogue Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Reverend Sean Parker Dennison has also served the Unitarian Universalist Association on the Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Committee and co-founded Trust, TRUUST, Transgender Religious Professional UUs Together. He also wrote Breaking and Blessing. Our reading comes from that meditation manual. First, learn to listen, not only for enemies around, corners and hidden places, but for the faint footsteps of hope and the whisper of resistance. Hone your skills, aim your heart toward kindness, and stockpile second chances. Under the weight of destruction, we will need the strong shelter of forgiveness and the deeper wells that give the sweet water of welcome. We have a place for you. When the world ends, we must not add destruction to destruction, not accept a beggar's bargain, to fight death with more death. In order to survive the apocalypse, any apocalypse at all, we have to give up the counterfeit currency of self-sufficiency, the mistaken addiction to competition, the lie that the last to die has somehow survived.
In January of 2017, as I was finishing seminary, I traveled to Myanmar, also known as Burma, with a group studying Buddhist and Christian approaches to nonviolent social change. I anticipated learning a lot about approaches to organizing and from spending 3 silent days in a meditation center. But in the end, I actually learned more about resistance and joy. Since that time, there has been a military takeover, and atrocities there are widespread. Within this context, it may seem strange to tell you what my friends in Myanmar taught me about joy. Sometimes it seems strange to me, but I've come to understand that they would still want me to tell you what they learned and in turn taught me. Their lessons might be even more important now. In Myanmar, I was deeply affected by witnessing deep pain and scars from decades of violence and abuse and trauma. Trauma that is deeply ingrained in multiple generations that have grown up only ever knowing war. One friend told me about growing up in the mountains, where his Chin ethnic minority suffered overt violence and was deprived of economic options, educational opportunities, and health care, in a system deeply rigged against them. I learned about his work with survivors of war and human trafficking, promoting Christian, Buddhist, Muslim interfaith dialogue, and working with the gay community. As you might imagine, these are very dangerous areas and topics to work in. 2 friends from another ethnic minority, the Po Karen, told me about their people's decades-long rebellion and how they worked with youth from their villages on reclaiming their language and dances, all while trying to heal wounds from decades of violence and traumatic experiences. The military government had then only recently stopped fighting the Po Karen a few years before, and at the time they maintained an actively oppressive presence around Po Karen areas. A fact that was made clear when we were stopped at an unmarked checkpoint on the way to visit one of their villages. My friends spoke of their people's collective and individual pain, the legacy of war, social cost, and the consequences for the peace process. But my friends also spoke of joy. And I witnessed joy every day and from almost every person I met in everyday activities as well as in celebrations. And so I began to understand joy as distinct from happiness and how that joy helps people survive and resist. In that joy, there was no pretending that poverty and unexpected violence weren't present in every day and every hour. Sitting with a family in their shelter in a slum built in a wetland, they weren't happy about the circumstances that led them there or the sludge that they lived in. But there was a quiet pride in surviving and a joy in life. At the schools and the churches I visited, people were conscious of the tenuousness of their situation, that violence might break out again any time, as it did shortly after I left. That they might be victims of that violence because they were promoting interfaith dialogue or preserving their culture. This was a knowledge based not in the abstract, but in lived experience. But there was a determination and fierce, quiet joy in the work and the healing and in simply being. Circumstances didn't stop joy and didn't stop the cultivation of joy. When I asked my friends about this, they spoke of being unwilling to let joy be crushed out of them or to let oppressors use their anger and pain as tools to further divisions. Joy, they told me, can function as a form of resistance. In Myanmar, I started to understand that joy is not happiness. Happiness depends on circumstances. But joy is an attitude of our hearts and our minds and our souls. It sustains us in ways that happiness cannot. And it can be cultivated even in dire conditions. And when we do cultivate joy, it can sustain us in a way that nothing else can, particularly when we do not allow joy to push out feelings of anger and sorrow, when we hold them all. This is what my friends taught me. Joy is an attitude of our deepest selves. It can nourish us, sustain us, and be a potent form of resistance. The past few years, we have struggled with deepening institutionalized oppression here. As we've done so, Myanmar's teachings about joy have come home to me in new ways, and I've looked into what I learned there. I've found that research is bearing out and expanding upon what my friends taught me. This research is showing that there is a difference between how positive and negative empathy function in our hearts and minds. Now, negative empathy, the kind we're most familiar with usually, helps us feel another person's pain or anger or grief and identify with their experience of injustice. Negative empathy helps us want to help another person's pain stop and prompts us to help them avoid more suffering. This is good. Negative empathy is very good. But that's as far as it tends to go. When we help someone return to or get to a neutral level where they're not actively hurting, and we're done. Positive empathy allows us to feel another person's joy, happiness, love, or empowerment. Positive empathy helps us want to help others thrive and flourish. It helps us focus on helping others not simply stop hurting, but actually have opportunities for personal growth and to achieve their own goals. Kind of like the boy in our story earlier. This is good. This is very good. Empathetic joy helps us stay engaged with life when things are difficult. As scientist Kelly McGonigal says, it is not just a practice of celebrating and amplifying the good. It also allows us to sustain hope when we face the reality of suffering unrelieved and needs yet unmet. In other words, cultivating positive empathy, that is, working on catching others' joy, peace, love, and empowerment, seems to make compassion and compassionate actions more sustainable over time. What's more, cultivating gratitude helps nourish well-being and can even help people heal emotionally and mentally from trauma. Much of the gratitude that seems to help people heal is about relationship or being able to help others. You may notice that you feel better even if you've been having a day and you help someone else. It's gratitude for being part of community that helps us heal the most. And while the healing effects of gratitude might not appear for months, they are long-term. And that long-term bit, that's significant because we're in this for the long haul. Whether we're talking about healing trauma or working for racial, ecological, gender, or other types of justice, we're in this for the long haul. I know y'all here at Peoples are. And so we've got to be able to sustain this work. Burning out or coming to a place where we're stuck and feeling helpless or hopeless isn't a great option. We certainly might need to feel and voice our anger to get us to help the hurting stop. This is important. And make no mistake, the hurting does need to stop. But we also can't stop there. We know that we are all connected. Our liberation is bound up together. We want all of us to be able to survive and thrive, to grow spiritually, to deepen in our journeys, to develop fully as human beings. Our religious heritage teaches us this, even if we have not always lived up to our beliefs. Our values speak to the truth of this. And cultivating joy, celebration, and play, even while we hold the legacy of pain, gently yet firmly helps us in this sacred work. May we catch joy within our justice work and in relationship. May we cultivate those things that nourish our compassion and loving kindness. We need this for ourselves and for our neighbors, for this beautiful, sacred web of life, because we're in this together for the long haul. So may it be. Blessed be. Amen.
Each week, we participate as a community in the spiritual practice of generosity. The offering we collect today will go to support the mission of People's Church, which is leading compassionate lives through spiritual growth and just action. You have the option of putting cash or a check into the offering plate being passed here in the sanctuary, or you can also mail a check to the church, donate online at peoplesuu.org, or use the Vanco mobile app. And now, in a spirit of generosity and compassion, this morning's offering will now be gratefully given and lovingly received.
Thank you for all the ways that you embody generosity. May we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts. As we enter into a time of prayerful meditation, I invite you to silently name your great joys and deep sorrows. For those of you who'd like to come forward in silence, you have two options to symbolize the stirrings of your heart. You can choose to either light a candle or place it in the sand, or place a stone in the sacred water. The water was assembled by this beloved community during water communion in September and holds a special place in the ritual life of this congregation. Josh will start by lighting one candle for justice and healing, in particular, lifting up love to all those who are particularly impacted by the political maneuverings at the state and national levels. And now, in a moment, I invite all who would like to please come forward via the center aisle and return to your seats down the side aisles. As you're willing and able, please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love, this week has been hard. Those who are supposed to lead us continue spreading chaos, ignorance, anger, and hate, sowing anxiety, fear, division, and oppression. In these difficult times, help us find solace, connection, and strength in community, in connection. Spirit of life, help us sink into and open up to the gratitude and delight of a few warmer days, when our animal neighbors remind us how good it is to simply be and to celebrate Earth. Spirit of love, help us together find grounding in our community and our values, that we may metabolize what is happening in our world. May we tend the soil we grow in so that anxiety, fear, division, hate, and oppression cannot flourish here, but instead, love, justice, and generosity can. In these days, may we connect, listen, share, deepen, and catch joy that will help us survive and thrive. May we let that joy flourish. So may it be. Amen. Blessed be. And now as we move towards closing, let's join our voices once more in song. We'll be singing Let It Be a Dance. Please feel free to let your bodies move if they would like to do so, but don't feel like you have to if your body doesn't want to. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend, and like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, share the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance. invited to read aloud our words to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Before we enjoy one last gift of music, as you go out into the world this day and this week, may you go catching joy and finding ways to nourish it as a source of resistance for yourselves and our wider community. Go in peace, love, and justice, living love ever more fully and fiercely into this world. Amen and blessed be.